Thank you, Chairman. Let me first declare that I follow the footstep of Professor Raga by declaring that this is only a draft. It's okay now? Good. Yeah. My paper is titled Nationalism versus Solidarity in this. Oh, no, sorry. Imperialism, nationalism, or global sharing. Okay. The focus of this paper is rather on the state, not on the nation, not the so-called nation state. Let me first introduce you to the structure of this paper very, very quickly. It is foreword and conclusion at the end of the paper, and in between there are four substantial parts. The part one deals with the question of whether China is imperialist. And the second part touch upon China as a civilization state, not a nation state. The last part, part three, is about a chemistry of political influences that mix up the three ingredients, civilization, modernity, and nationalism, into something. The true character of which has still to be more closely entertained before we can know its possible impact on the New World Order. And then if I have time at the end of the day, I think I need to add a new part, not decided originally, but after I have heard about the discussion in the preceding days, it will serve very, very good purpose to make you understand more the dynamics of China's thrust in its foreign policies with the aim to modify the whole world, particularly in terms of the spiritual dimension. Now, let's start. I would really read it very, very quickly in order to save time for the new part. Is China imperialist? Well, it depends on our use of the word. China can be said to be imperialist from its very beginning. It is at least arrogant, as suggested by several ideological expressions. In 1046 BCE, when the Zhou kingdom, the earliest kingdom, was established, its emperor created the concept of the mandate of heaven, Tianming in Chinese, to justify its replacement of the former dynasty of Shang, and at the same time establish itself as the only legitimate ruler of the whole universe, Tianxia or Tiandi. With blessing of the heaven, Tian, such a chain of ideas may naturally entail an arrogant state that is the center of a theoretically unlimited territory. The term China in Chinese, 中国, indeed, is an arrogant connotation. It means a state in the center of the world. It then goes without saying that the state of China can be expansionist, if not outright imperialist, defined as practice of outright acquisition of territory and extension of dominion by military force. No doubt, China has both strong and weak dynasties, but all of them share a common trait. That is, the reach of the state is weak. If this is true for domestic affairs, China's foreign relations in the old days must also be quite shallow. Only since the Ming or even the Middle Qing dynasty, that is late 18th century, did a loose network of international trade relations start to develop between China and its neighboring countries, leading to the evolution of a loose set of expectations and precedents, an offer of tribute, and offer often referred to as a tributary system, under which symbolic obeisance and offer of tributes were exchanged with assurance of peace, investiture, and trading opportunities. Examples include Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and the Ryukyu Kingdom. The key point to take so far is as follows. While China wished to extend its political and economic influence between the borders in times, it had never invaded and colonized other sovereign states. In the internet talk shop, r/communism 101, there's a debate over whether the new Belt and Road Initiative of China today is imperialist. The dominant assumptions focus on where the benefits of initiative go. The answers are, of course, Chinese companies, workers, as well as the state of China. It remains the fact that neither colonization is involved. China can therefore perhaps be charged for engaging in economic imperialism. Still, the aggressive push of the Belt and Road Initiative does stir up some fear of China's ultimate intention, not at present, but what about the future? That is, a political strategic dominance over other countries. The fear is a modern form of the old Euro peril or China threat image. If you have received my PowerPoint of this paper, you will see two pictures. One picture is a cartoon about the yellow fever, published in popular typods. Those are local newspapers in the United States some 20 years ago, as China started to really getting more powerful and powerful in various aspects. And then at the end of the PowerPoint, there's a picture of Xi Jinping positioning himself between Lenin on the left-hand side and Mao Zedong on the right-hand side. That is his own image of his importance in Chinese or even the world history of imperialism, of communism. Besides, there are material underpinnings to the China threat thesis, basically the bursting economic growth in 2 decades and further on the concomitant advancement in political, cultural, military, and scientific technological might. The accepted projections, thus, that China is destined to become a superpower in competition for global hegemony with the United States as an established power. In other words, the two big powers will be locked in the I don't know how to pronounce this Greek word, Thucydides trap, leading eventually to war as wanted by Graham Allison, author of the celebrated bestseller book, Essence of Decision, that deals with the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The second part deals with China as a civilization state and not a nation state, and the implications of this civilization for China's foreign policy today. As pointed out in the above, China is prepared to threat other states if necessary. However, material preparedness does not necessarily end up with outbreak of war. One more step is required, that is, an intention to engage in warfare. Both the intention and the practice depend on a host of factors. Among possible candidates, 4 factors stand out: culture, interests, context, and particular leadership that translate the other 3 into action. Starting with the issue of culture, there are 2 strategic cultural legacies. Parabellum, based on the realist belief, and the second one is Confucian teaching on peace and harmony. According to the former, China can be an assertive status quo power, as attested to by Alistair Ian Johnson. A prominent example is evident in East and Southeast Asia, where a kind of Chinese monodoctrine applies. When Confucian teaching on peace and great harmony applies, China can be less assertive and more others regarding. It goes without saying that when China is weak, it can't afford to be assertive, not to speak of being aggressive. It would be a self-inflicted isolationist. And I will come to speak about the different positionings by different leaders in different periods in New China. Now I come to the part 3, which is the longest part. It is about the chemistry of political influences among civilization, modernization, and nationalism, whereas modernization includes also post-modernization. Right? And this chemistry, how this chemistry would work if really applied on the New World Order. To evoke its civilization is history chasing. China was introduced to Western civilization in 1583. That is the 11th year of the Ming Dynasty, when the Jesuit Father Matteo Ricci came to China, bringing with him Christianity and Western knowledge of astronomy, geography, science, and technology. He was warmly received by Chinese scholars who call him a Tai Xi Xian Shi. This means really a Confucianist coming from the West. In contrast, the British Opium War against China in 1842 ushers in a competitive different reaction. What Chinese experienced then was humiliation. What followed were different kinds of reflections and movements. The once strong and admired China of the Qing dynasty collapsed. And as a combined result of bad harvests, warfare, rebellions, overpopulation, economic disasters, and foreign imperialism contribute to the dynasty's collapse. A new Republican government was established by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a physician, come political leader, who advocated an early version of Chinese nationalism called the Union of Five Nationalities. This five nations are the Han, the Mongolian, and Uyghurs or Islams, Tibetans, and then the Manchus. Okay. But it's end up into the orthodox or a partisan political party whose particular attention is on the Han nation. Mao Zedong, on the other hand, could boast that under him China had stood up. But for what? Mao had, in fact, two faces. He embraced the Marxist-Leninist brand of internationalism, therefore is a globalist, an internationalist, but rely on Chinese nationalism to win the China war and also to govern China. In the early 1990s, the Marxism-Leninism Mao Zedong thought in China started to erode as a part of the worldwide crisis of communism. The state legitimacy experienced an acute crisis. The expectation is that nationalism will have to fill the void created by the crisis of confidence toward the Chinese Communist Party, and by the collapse of the myth of socialism as a metric for economic development. Yet, the road is hard to tread, as argued by Lucien Pai, an astute observer of the Chinese culture in evolution. He wrote in 1993 that the relationship between nationalism and modernization had taken a form in China that is different from what occurred anywhere else. To him, the essence of modernization is a blending of archaic cultural values and the universal norms associated with the world culture defined as international standards, universalistic knowledge such as science and technology, and the values and practices appropriate for advanced contemporary societies. While nationalism involves only those sentiments and attitudes basic to orientations toward the nation state. Above all, it is important to distinguish Chinese nationalism from all the powerful sentiments associated with China's cultural identity. To understand the likely direction of Chinese historical development, we also need to have a clear sense of the more specific ideals, myths, heroes, and symbols that can inspire Chinese nationalism as the Chinese seek the goals of modernization. Everywhere in the post-colonial world, nationalism and modernization were reinforcing forces. But in China, they've been essentially antagonistic toward each other. Elsewhere, the articulators of nationalism were the most modernized people in the country. Western intellectuals were the people who gave voice to the new ideals of independence and nationalism. The anti-colonial leaders of South and Southeast Asia and Africa were people like Nehru and Gandhi, Nkrumah and Suharto, who were at times in both the modern world and their respective traditional culture. They had out of their own life experiences a vivid sense of the challenge of combining modern and traditional practices. In contrast, in China, political power was never firmly in the hands of the best educated or the most modernized people. Those who have held supreme political power in mainland China have reflected mainly the culture of interior China. Interior China, I emphasize, not coastal China. few have experienced a deep immersion in modern world or even spoken a total language. Except Jiang Zemin, who boasts of his English proficiency and try to speak English all the time. Thus, from the Boxer Rebellion to the latest anti-spiritual pollution from the West campaign, the Chinese political class has routinely treated modern, Western educated Chinese as being tainted, flawed people, unworthy of being leaders of Chinese nationalism. Unlike in other countries, many Chinese intellectuals have at times adopted a totally hostile view toward their own great traditional culture, calling for the complete rejection of the past and the boundless adoption of Western culture. There also have been times when other leaders, in particular some intellectuals, have gone to the opposite extreme and tried to idealize China's traditions. But what was idealized was not the realities of the living Chinese mass culture. It was abstractions of a romanticized past. Thus, between the two extremes of either nihilistically denouncing Chinese civilization or romanticizing it, both Chinese culture and political leaders have consistently failed to do what their counterparts in the rest of the developing world have tried to do, which was to create a new sense of nationalism that would combine elements of tradition with appropriate features of the modern world culture. Their dream was how to build up a strong state, not so much a democratic state of the people, by the people, and for the people. Given the collectivistic goal and the elitist orientation, it's easy for the movement to end up with the monopolistic rule of the party, be it the National Party Kuomintang in Taiwan or the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. The above analysis of Chinese nationalism is confined to the level of elite. That's my analysis in the above, whether it's political elite or otherwise. What about the man on the street? How do they think? How do they feel? How do they react to external stimuli? There have been always press reports about nationalist outbursts from time to time in mainland China, not so much in Hong Kong, hardly in Taiwan. But serious study is also void until the publication of a book in English to begin with, and then translated in Chinese in 3 years ago. It's called Destructing the Chinese Dream, the dynamic of Chinese nationalism and social American relations, 1999 to 1914. Authored by Simon Shen, a colleague of me in our University of Hong Kong. Shen argues that nationalism in China is multifaceted, depending on 3 interrelated levels of analysis. Level A, the general intelligentsia. The Chinese Communist Party, the government, and the military. Level B, the Chinese Communist Party, the government, and the military. The general intelligentsia, scholars or reporters specializing in international relations. Level C, the common people, inclusive, the mass media, and others not easily classifiable platform of expressions such as diplomatic dialogues among states or societies, occasions of cultural exchanges, festivals, and tombstoning in honor of martyrs, heroes, etc. On the part of the government, experienced deployment is always ready to guide, control, and sometimes follow the public mood and dare thereby reconfirming the steering power of the state, somehow facilitates its bargaining power in diplomatic struggles and ultimately stabilize political and social stability at home. Given the historical intellectual background I have just described, it's no wonder that the movements of those days to help resurrecting China are informed and organized by clan, sworn brothers, or relatives related elites of mostly Han nationality. The China dream of the Chinese counter leaders are more concrete and contextualized. It has moved from a more reserved and introvert mode through stages up to the pursuit of a superpower status. Mao Zedong's dream, to begin with, is quite conservative, just to enable China to stand up in a hostile world. Deng Xiaoping, on the other hand, adopted a positive posture towards the outside world, decided to learn from the best practice of the West, and eventually accept capitalism as the right course for China's reforms, especially in the economy. The catchword thus adopted was, I quote, "Let China get rich while maintaining a low profile in its foreign relations," Tao Guan Yang Hui. Compared to his predecessors, Jiang Zemin is a leader who wants to show off his talents. He produced a theory of three representatives. These are represent advanced political productive forces, represents the progressive cause of China's advanced culture, and represents the fundamental interests of the majority of people in China. This theory specifies what Chinese Communist Party stands for in terms of making the state strong and the party more representative and hence legitimate as the ruler of China. Thanks to his extrovert orientation, China became a member of the World Trade Organization. Jiang's successor, Hu Jintao, turned out to be a controversial figure. On the positive side, China's economic growth registered more than 8% every year during his reign. His timely and strong physical stimulus managed to save the country from the devastation by the world financial crisis in 2007-2008. His legacy must be praised with a long list of accomplishments beyond material progresses. Under his supervision, Beijing successfully staged the Summer Olympic in 2001, a successful PR job, pushed through space exploration with the launch of a manned spacecraft and space station, which gave renewed confidence to the Chinese people, common people. He also exhibited a strong stride with a diplomatic reach to Africa. By 2005, the total Sino-American trade had reached, the African trade has reached some 40 billion US dollars. Before it jumped to 55 billion US dollars in 2006, making China the second largest trading partner of Africa after the United States, which had trade worth of 91 billion with African nations. At the same time, China's influence also grew in South America and the Caribbean. The most eye-catching deal played by Hu Jintao during his visit to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Cuba in November 2007, i.e. a sum of $100 billion worth of investment pledged over the next decade. In one instance, China has encroached upon the interests of the United States by taking up the modernization of the whole Cuba's transportation system. States by taking, last but not least, China was also stepping up its military-to-military contact in regions in the region, and by the way, offer military training at the U.S. expense too. In Caribbean, let me skip all the rest and come to what I want to particularly emphasize. Because I have idea collected over the past days, you guys are more interested in spiritual matters. So inquiring the mind of people rather than material progress or backwardness. Let me start with Confucian teaching, or rather Mencius, his disciples' teaching. Like many teachings promoted by Jesus, as I learned from the Bible, it's not sufficient to just change the material conditions of humankind and the world. It's more important to change the mindset, the mind, the heart of the people. This is called in the Confucian mentioned teaching as a sin. In English translation, this means a dialectic and also a combination of the nature and the mind, the heart of the human being. So the perfect horizon for us to arrive at is a recognition, a combination, a confluence between the human mind and the nature. Well, the nature does not necessarily refer to God, but there's something metaphysical beyond the Chinese epistemology. And this has influenced, this theory has influenced Xi Jinping quite a lot. So actually, his ultimate ambition is not really to change the material constitutions of the world, but change the value system of the world. So there's a new one, is a Chinese one, to replace the US dominated value system at the present. I stop here. How he is doing it can be gains to what he has been doing in mainland China with regard to education, particularly child education. From childhood on, you want to change the soul of the people, and not when people are all adults, but starting with babies in kindergarten.